Okay, Doktor
This
dah
one is
dapat.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, because this one is the usual mode. Just now there was a bit wait because I use other interface. Okay, thank you for informing. We'll just wait for everyone to be in. For many of you here. 16. No, 17. Okay. Not everyone is doing that. Still waiting for everyone to be in. Sorry for the technical problems. Don't be how many of you? We already 20 of you. Okay, maybe we can just proceed. Okay. Okay. Sorry for the technical problems. Right. Mana tadi ya? I've talked about this. Okay, I've talked about the requirement in terms of the degree, right? And then this one, right? Instill systematic. Okay, we are still under the point why you do research, why students undertake research study and write thesis. Yeah. Systematic method of thinking. Okay. So how it develops that systematic method, because you are trained, right? To do works in systematic, yeah, systematic means step by step, yeah. So you just imagine if you are under that particular training ground, yeah, you do the work step by step, it will actually influence the way how you do works in the future or in other occasions, yeah. So because yeah, without being systematic, you cannot actually get good, I mean, the real results, yeah? It must be systematic. So indirectly, if you do research, you know, you will be trained to be systematic from time to time. And also in the thinking, yeah, so you have to, you know, like maybe you start thinking about what will be the outputs of this and what will be the output if you do this, yeah, and all this stuff. Right. A thesis is an original contribution to knowledge resulting from the systematic study of a significant problem or issue. Yes, because at the end you write the thesis. So you can see that even the thesis itself, you should be systematic in all those things. First, you do the proposals. So when you do the proposals, you have the literature review, right? And those literature review you will use later in your final report, yeah, in order to complete the thesis. And apart from that, you have the methods. So in your methods, you should say what you need to do from the beginning to the end. And then the results also is a systematic way. You have to start, there must be a storyline of your results, from what the first stage, for example, what you have achieved, and then you will describe your results, and then what you proceed with the next work and so on. So it must be all the things, everything must be systematic, including the thesis, not just the work. Okay. Improve understanding of the scientific methods. When you do research, you are practicing. So when you practice, you actually learn more, you understand more because you experience doing it, compared to if you just read the theories and memorize. You will not really perhaps you understand, but you will not remember as much as how you do the works in the lab. Yeah. Okay, so that is what we call hands-on experience. Hands-on means you put your hands on the work. Harness logical reasoning ability. The finished work, the finished product evidences of originality, critical and independent thinking, appropriate organization and format, and thorough documentation. Yeah. So thesis is a thorough documentation because you have to put everything, all the things that you involve in the research. Yeah. From the beginning, from the intro to the conclusion, right? There is a need to demonstrate that what have been written is logical, well argued, and intellectually useful thesis. Okay. Whenever you present your results, it's not just about describing the results. Like when you say that you got this, you got the bioethanol production as 30 gram per liter, for example. It's not just going to be end at that point, you know? So you have to say, what do you mean by 30 gram per liter? So what? So at the end, after the results, you should also discuss it. Discuss why you got 30 gram per liter, and then how this work is compared to other works, other researchers in the past. Okay, let's say you are using banana waste to produce it. So how you want to compare bioethanol production using other sources, like maybe other, maybe sago waste, yeah, pineapple waste, other types of waste. So is it your banana, I mean, is it very beneficial to use banana waste, like 30 gram per liter, how much it is compared to the standard production? Yeah, maybe if let's say you use synthetic medium, it is 50 gram per liter of bioethanol. So it means that 30 gram per liter bioethanol compared to the synthetic medium is not, you are using waste, and that one is using fresh media or synthetic media. So it's not really bad, right? I mean, that is the thing that you have to discuss. So it's just one example. So that is the reasoning ability, what we call it reasoning ability. The ability to state the reasons, why it's like that. So in scientific writing, you have to also state the reasons, the possible reasons. Of course, you don't have the absolute reasons. Maybe you can say that you can use the words like, okay, possible reasons could be so and so. Okay, but that is the discussion. That is the reasons. I mean, the possible reasons. And that will actually train the researchers to come up with the reasoning skill. Reasoning skill. So when you are trained, you have to report your results, and you have to discuss it. Okay, you are trained. You are trained to find the reason why. And how you want to find the reasons is through reading, through your literature review. When you read other articles that are related, that have some overlaps. Remember, when you do research, there must be overlap, but there must be a gap as well, right? So the overlap is the one that is like, for example, bioethanol production. But the gap is you are using banana waste, but others are using sago waste or other types of waste, right? So that is actually how you can compare. That's why the gap is very important, but the overlap is also important, because that is actually how you can compare and contrast, right? So that is reasoning ability. And then develop expertise in the field of choice. So when you do research, you are going to go specific. For example, if later if you're doing FYP research, now you are studying biotech in general. You're studying many things, like animal biotech, plant biotech, genetic engineering, microbiology, right? So it's very general. You have to know the basics, the foundation for all. But when you do research FYP, you cannot do all because you don't have time. So you have to choose the niche area that you want to focus on. For example, you want to know more about plant biotech. So you choose research under plant biotech, and that will be your expertise. And when you do research in plant biotech, right, you know more about the project, and of course the plant biotech, compared to those who are doing other stuff. Okay, other persons. So other persons, they are focusing on other stuff, right? Other things. So under other niche areas. Like your friends are doing research in animal biotech. So then he or she may know about animal biotech more than you, but you know more about plant biotech more than him or her. Okay, so that will be the expertise of your the expertise that you will develop. So imagine if you see FYP is a starting point where you start focusing on what you want to focus on. So and during that 6 months, for example, that is the time. So you can imagine if you go further, if you take master degree, right, and you're focusing more on whatever the things like maybe the microbial fermentation. Say you study for 20 years, for another 20 years, for 2 years. Salah juga. For 2 years, okay. You just imagine, like, for 2 years you develop more knowledge compared to those people who don't do research for 2 years. Okay, so that 2 years is the time for you to master yourself in that field. And what's more, if you do research for another 4 years for PhD, so means that you are going into deeper and deeper into the field. So the difference between undergrad and postgraduate studies, for undergrad is like you are studying on the surface. You're studying many things, but on the surface, not so in depth. But if you are doing research in master and also PhD, you take one part, like maybe you want to focus more on, like I said, microbial fermentation, maybe on yeast fermentation, right? but you go deeper. Means that you explore more about yeast fermentation. Even yeast fermentation is still general. Normally, we will focus on one organism. For example, Pichia pastoris, right? Lacase fermentation, lacase production by Pichia pastoris. So it's very specific. But you study a lot about, I mean, you study in depth about Pichia pastoris fermentation for 2 years. You just imagine, you know more about Pichia pastoris fermentation after 2 years compared to those people who don't do research in Pichia pastoris. Okay, so it's like, and that will be the expertise. That's what is meant by expertise. Your knowledge strength, right? Okay, so what do you mean by, I mean, when you develop your expertise, once you have done your research for 2 years, master degree, and a PhD for 4 years, what is the implication is that you are able to share your research, your words, right? Your outputs, the benefits of your research. If you are studying about enzymes that can degrade contaminants of wastewater. So you can write articles, and that articles can be references for others. Okay, so people know that, oh, there are enzymes that can degrade this kind of contaminant. It's from your research. So that is the impact of the research. So ability to contribute research ideas. Okay, that is in terms of what we call scholarly characteristics, the first point. So those are the sub-points: thinking ability, systematic method of thinking, understanding of the scientific methods, logical reasoning ability, expertise. Yeah. So make sure you understand what it means. Reasoning ability is ability to give reasons, to discuss, to not just to present, but you have to elaborate on that. You have to discuss why the results are so and so. Okay, another, we have how many points more? Yeah, this 2, 3, 4, 3 more points. Why students undertake research: to develop self-reliance and independence. Because if you're in the lab, of course you are supervised by your supervisor, but you cannot expect your supervisor to be there all the time. Yeah. So most of the time you have to be independent. You have to read by yourself. You cannot just be instructed, read this, read that, do this, do that. You cannot. So you have to be proactive. You have to take initiatives on your own. And you have to rely on yourself. But I mean, of course, you have to work with people at the lab, right? You have to ask for advices from your senior, from the postgraduates who are more experienced. But most of the time, you have to work independently. You have to be independent. You know what independent is, right? Self-reliance means that you rely on yourself to do work. So you don't have to rely on others. You don't have to rely on your supervisor to say that you have to read this article. You have to read articles. In research, you have to read a lot in order to know more what's happening in in your particular research. Right? Self-reliant, independent. Okay. That is the thing that you have to develop later in the lab, for your FYP. Improve writing ability. So in this course, we are not just talking about science, but we are talking also about communicating science, how to communicate our science. Once we have achieved good results, whatever the results, it's not just going to be end there, right? If you don't communicate it, it's going to be a waste. You talk about it in our first activity, right? Why we have to communicate science? What happens if there is no communication of science? So how you want to communicate effectively? If let's say now, if I talk to you now, if I don't use correct language, if my language is not good, if my language is not clear, what happened? You will not get the message, right? Everything is a mess, and at the end there's no point that you attend the class because you don't get anything. I hope that you get something from my lecture. But to say that the communication is important, but why what makes a good communication? And communication, there are a lot of forms. There can be written communication, oral communication, right? So when we talk about written communication, we have to use the right words. And of course, now we are using English. English is undeniably is the what we call that, lingua franca, right? Is the language that we use to communicate with people all around the world. We cannot use Malay. Of course, we have is something different from being patriotic. It's not that we don't use Malay in communicating signs that we are not patriotic. Don't misunderstand that. So we use English because we want to convey our message or our scientific findings wider. So if you just communicate in Malay, only people in Malaysia or maybe Indonesia or Brunei can understand. But if you communicate or you write your articles in English, people from all around the world can benefit from it. It's not just can get the ideas, but benefit from what you do. That's the importance, right? So that's why communication is important. And to achieve a good communication, you have to have a good command of the language that you communicate, which is English. Yeah, right. So how you want to improve that? So it should go along. You cannot say that you just want to study science and you ignore English because you are not taking English degree, English-based degree. That is a very wrong perception. Yeah? So you have to improve at the same time. Like me now, I'm still studying English. I'm still learning new words every day. I love to learn new English words, even though I'm now a lecturer. But to say that the learning process does not stop anywhere. Yeah? So even though that now you are focusing on science and you say that maybe you want to your reason or your excuse say that your English is not good, English is not my second language, English is not my first language, it's my second language, I don't speak English at home, that shouldn't be the excuse. I also don't speak English at home. I mean, I speak like just maybe 10% or 20%, but Malay is my first language. But you must change that perception, that mentality. Okay, I don't like to say, I don't like to, I'm not a fan of people who say that, English is just a language. I don't like that, honestly, because I think English is very important. And why is important? Because you want to communicate your science. Otherwise, if let's say your writing is tunggang langgang, is a mess, how I want to understand the science? Okay, how I want to so at the end, what's the meaning of your work for 2 years for your master degree, like a PhD 4 years? It means nothing if you can't communicate it effectively. Okay, so please have that initiative, right? Apart from science, you also have to improve your English. That is for yourself, because and it's never late to learn English. Even now, you should start improving. So how you want to start? I mean, you have learned English since primary school, and everything is not that really foreign to you. Right? Tenses, grammar. So it's a very basic things actually. Past tense, present tense, how you use the past tense, how you use the present tense, when you will use the future tense. So it's something that you have learned already. It's just about practicing. Okay, read more articles in English, and when you read good articles and you write, I mean, when you come across new words that you do not know, jot it down. I mean, have a book, have a grammar book, learn from that. You cannot ignore that. I mean, like now you know what, for example, what is the new word here? Reasoning ability. What is reasoning ability? It's the ability to give reasons. So learn from that. Learn the terminologies because you will come across lots of terminologies along the way. During the FYP, when you read the articles, you're gonna come across lots of terms related to biotech and also the English terms, like normal terms, but they are used in scientific writing. So you have to embrace it lah. So that is part of it, yeah. Improve the writing ability because without good writing, you cannot communicate your science. So that's why, that's why it's important. Communication is important, and what makes communication is the language that you use, right? Facilitate involvement in networking and teamwork. So research, when you do research, means that you will develop a network. What do you mean by network? It's like the easiest one is when you are working in the lab, you know many people, right? And not just from one lab, you know from people from other labs, okay? And if you go wider, means that from other universities, or maybe if you read, if you are in communication with people from other universities in the same research and you want to do same research, and you want to collaborate, we call it collaborate, like bekerja sama, collaborate, right? Do some works together. That is your network. So and you will develop a network. Like if let's say you are like me now, my specialization is fermentation. So I know people who are working in fermentation in Malaysia, or maybe in my area, in some countries, because I read there, I know their words, and because I have some contacts from abroad as well. So that is your networking. Yeah. So that is how you can develop network. Yeah? Is through research. Okay. So what are the benefits of it? So you will get some information, right? You will get, maybe if you collaborate, perhaps you can do some works in their labs and use their facilities, yeah? And also expertise. And maybe they have some expertise in certain areas that you do not have. So you can get their advice. And that is how you can exchange knowledge and also widen your knowledge. Yeah? Okay, so that is the importance of research. You say why? What's the benefit? Yeah? Why and the benefits that come from research, from doing research. Okay. So steps in carrying out research, or it should be carrying out, not our, carrying out research. I think this one we have talked about it in detail in last lecture, but just to see the overall view, right? First, we have to know the problem. Yeah? You know about the research problem. I hope that you understand now. And when you know the problem is where you start your research, where you want to proceed your research. So you have to gather the information. This is through what we call literature review. Yeah? So now you have to know what literature review is. It's a process of reviewing information from the literature. When we say literature, is like collection of articles, right? When we say that, like in the past, people have written lots of articles in many things, like many in whatever fields, but that is that scope, we call it literature. Okay, in the literature means, when we say that in the literature, means in that scope lah, in that scope, you know what I mean? So means that it is referring to works that have been done in the past. Yeah, articles that you have read. That's what we call literature. And then after you gather the information, that is how you you get the information and you write your research proposal, right? Before you do research, you have to write a research proposal. You cannot start directly. You cannot just enter the lab directly without proper plan. Proposal is a plan, actually. Yeah, proposal is a plan. You know what you want to do, which microbe you want to use, which chemicals you want to use, equipments that you want to use, the risks as well. Yeah? So you know that some chemicals are hazardous. You cannot just touch it. So it's actually all together embodied in proposal. So that's why you have to prepare the proposal, because the proposal, the writing process, the proposal writing will allow you to know those things beforehand, yeah? Before the research is to be conducted, and it will make you, it will get you to be prepared. Okay, without a research proposal, just imagine that if you enter the lab without any information about your research, you'll be lost. And it's not just that, you will waste your time, energy, right? So that's why planning is very important, and a good proposal is very important. Okay. Accomplishment of research. So once you are done with the research proposal, okay, let's say at your stage for your FYP, you you will have to be evaluated by examiners. Means that the examiners need to see whether your proposal is good or not, yeah, is okay or not before you start the research. Once they say that it's okay, with maybe some suggestion, so you add the suggestion into your proposal, right, in your research plan. So only then you do your research, accomplish the research. So that is a process of maybe depends on the types of research. FYP research may take about 3 to 4 months in the lab. Yeah, so that is the accomplishment of the research. So once you're done with the research, that is when you write the report. Yeah? Write the report. So write a thesis lah, in the case of thesis. So in the case of other non-thesis based research, like me, let's say I want to do research, I don't have to write thesis anymore, but I would just have to write a report, okay, in order, let's say, the report to be submitted to the funder of the research, the one that give grant. You know, I mentioned about the word grant before. Grant is actually allocation of money, but it is given by certain funders, certain agencies, but we have to give, like what we have to do, we have to give progress report in order to report what the progress, and also we have to report at the end what we have achieved throughout the research. So that is what we have to do, apart from those research, thesis-based research, okay? So the principles of research, okay? So this is what a research should have, basically, yeah, the principles of research. It must have a meaningful objective, meaningful objectives. It must have, it must be conducted within reasonable costs, right? Appropriate research scope, relevant expertise, scientific and standard techniques and procedures, and responsibility. Okay, so what is meant by each of these? Meaningful objectives. So when you set the objectives, your objective must be something that are meaningful, that give impacts. Okay, for example, if I want to study the bioethanol production, right? The objective is to find the best concentration of perhaps banana fiber, or the best loading, the best concentration of banana fiber for bioethanol production. So means that at the end of the work, because that is the objective, at the end of the work, I would be able to identify the best concentration that give the best or the high production of ethanol. So that is, you know, the meaning of the objective. There is an output of it. Yeah. So the objective must be meaningful. It must give something at the end. Yeah. And then must have concrete scientific base to be able to be performed. Why you do that? Yeah? There must be a reason why you want to, like me, let's say I want to study about just now the substrate concentration, right? The reason is because different substrate loading may give different yield of bioethanol. Yeah, that is my scientific base. Yeah? That's why I developed that objective. So the objective must be based on a concrete scientific foundation. Yeah, I forgot to mention, should be achievable in terms of cost, available expertise, technology, and sufficient time. Right. So when you set the objective and you do the research, you have to see also the capacity of doing it. Like if you are doing at UNIMAS laboratories, we must make sure that because UNIMAS laboratories, some of the things might not be there. So if you want to do something, you set objectives, you must check whether it is reasonable or not to do that, whether you have the facilities or not. That one should be also checked. It's not just about setting the objectives. It must be relevant, it must be realistic as well. And then reasonable costs, able to obtain grant from granting bodies. Okay, grant is basically money, funding. So the research must, some of the research are not funded, but if let's say you want to conduct research that may require certain amount of money, right? So you have to get it a grant. And whenever you apply for the grant, you have to, I mean, there is a limit for it. Like you can't go for certain values, certain limit of monies. So the things must be also reasonable. Let's say you apply for, let's say 50,000 of 50,000 for the research. So what that 50,000 of research should be. I mean, you cannot be too yeah, it must be within that. Yeah, I mean, what I mean is that when you apply for 50,000, what is meant, what you have to justify why your research costs 50,000. That's the way. Okay. So it must be reasonable because you say that you need this, you need that, you need so and so. So altogether, the total is 50,000. Okay, you must have reason why that amount is needed for your research. Okay, so that's why it's reasonable cost. It must be reasonable cost. Yeah. So supervisor has an anecdote. You don't have to. Yeah, the last segment you don't have to really worry about it. So for the FYP is actually without grant. It's just a small research. So normally the one that with grant is a big research. Okay. Appropriate research scope. Okay, now, so when we talk about research, right, you must know what's your scope. You know what scope is? Scope is your limit, yeah, your things that to be covered, yeah. So, for example, if you want to do FYP research that is about 3 to 4 months, is it clear, everyone? Just to make sure. Good. The slide, the voice.
Perfect.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. What is meant by research, appropriate research scope means, okay, if you are doing a 3 to 4 month research, so you must know that you cannot study everything because you have limited time. It must means that is the things that you want to study is must be within your scope, within the time frame, right? So means that you cannot study all parameters. You have to limit. Parameters means that the things that you want to measure, you want to manipulate, right, and measure the outcome. So if let's say you want to focus on 2 parameters to be completed for 4 to 5 months, okay, so that is quite reasonable. Right? You cannot say that you want to cover 10 parameters for a work to be completed within 4 months. That is not realistic. Okay, so the scope must be must be realistic with the time frame, with the time frame, even also the cost, right? So if let's say you cannot expect to spend too much, but you have to be like within the scope that you have, within the cost that you have, something like that. Okay, so the research scope, it will influence many things, the parameters, the things that you want to do. If let's say you need to sample your bacteria, maybe you need to consider your location as well. So if let's say you want to study locations within Samarahan area, okay, so you focus on that scope, right? So things like that. So those are the things that will be determined by the scope of research, right? Vertical or horizontal spread. Okay, vertical is something that is perpendicular, right? Like vertical. Horizontal is something 180 degrees. Yeah. So vertical spread means if you study like certain things, you go deeper and deeper. For example, the easiest way is like to see when you study about vertical spread is something to do with like you study about Pica pastoris. Yeah? Pica pastoris is a type of yeast, right? You study about Pica pastoris only, but you go deeper and deeper. Many things about Pica pastoris. That is what we call vertical spread. I mean, you are going deeper and deeper, down and down, right? So that is vertical spread. You know one thing, but in depth, okay? But what is horizontal spread is you know many things, but you don't cover lots of things for each of that. Like now you are studying many courses, plant biotech, animal biotech, yeah? but you just study that. That is can be considered as horizon spread, but you don't focus on into depth. What I mean by in-depth studies is you do research in that, you do experiments, more and more experiments, and you know more about that area. Okay? Let's say let's say comparison to the Pichia pestis just now. Pichia pestis is a yeast, right? So if let's say we want to say horizontal spread, we study many types of yeast. Yeah, let's say Saccharomyces cerevisiae, Pichia pestis, apa lagi yeast? I can think at the moment. So you study many types, but you don't really investigate in depth for each of that. Okay, that is horizontal spread. Research scope depending on levels of your study. Okay, undergrad, master level, PhD, right? So I think I've mentioned about this. Yeah. So if you go from FYP to MSc to PhD, it will be deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah, and of course it depends on the time frame as well. Okay, the principles of research. This is anyone. Okay, relevant expertise. Okay, this one is in terms of what will define your research. Okay, so because sometimes you don't you can't like independent researchers, you can't do your research on your own. I mean, individually, you have to collaborate with others. So that is where you have to have collaboration, yeah? Collaboration with other researchers. Okay, that is Nila. And how you choose it, it depends on the research project. Okay, if let's say I want to study about bioethanol, I should have someone who also know about maybe bioethanol production from Sego Hampas, maybe. Yeah. So the one that I want to work with should have some experience or expertise in maybe a scale up, because I want to scale up the bioethanol production, something like that. Okay, so that is where you identify other niche areas, other experts that have expertise in different niche areas. Okay, so that is the research, right? It's not just about sometimes it's not just about doing the work, doing the research on your own, but you have to also to collaborate and get expertise from other researchers. So that is collaboration, we call it. Yeah? And then scientific and standard techniques and procedure, the principles of research, okay, should have. Why it is called standard techniques? So because we are in modern science era, we are not in traditional or conventional science era. So what does it mean? You must have proper procedure. You cannot just say that add 1 spatula of glucose in the media and stir it. What does that spatula means? 1 spatula means how much? Yeah. So in modern science, we cannot just use measurement like that. So we must have a standard technique to report it, to measure, like by weight, for example, like instead of spatula, instead of 1 spoon of glucose. So we must say that very in a very standard way, like 50 grams of glucose. So when you say that 50 grams, you know that how much it is. 1 spoon of glucose is very ambiguous. You do not know how much it is. Is it a tablespoon? Is it teaspoon? Right? So it's very ambiguous. So that is what is meant by non-standard technique. So you must practice the correct one, or the standard techniques. So what else? It's not just about measurement. It's about it covers everything in the procedure. Yeah. So yeah. You may also use published methods from journals. Okay, the methods must be established, in other words. So means that you cannot just create method. You can create method, but that one needs some expertise as well. But for beginners, you have to be based on, established procedure. Yeah, like people have established certain procedures, right? For example, for quantifying sugar, right? There must be a method for it. For quantifying protein, carbohydrate. So you must refer to those established methods. So that's what is meant by published method conjugate. And how you get that methods from articles, yeah, from your reading. New methods must be verified and reported. Okay, it's not to say that you cannot create new methods, but it should be if you come up with a new method, it's not it must be verified and must be verified by other scholars as well. Yeah? Right. Proper controls must be met in comparison with standard. Okay, so in experiments, we must have control. There is a concept of control experiment, control sample. So what is meant by control is the one that forms the foundation, the basic. For example, if you want to study the effect of apa ya? Okay, if I give you a very basic example, you want to study, you want to know the effect of okay, if you're growing plants, what's the effect of using fertilizer A, for example, fertilizer B. Okay, you have two fertilizers. And your control must be what? Okay, you want to grow a plant, right? And you have two fertilizer. You want to use fertilizer A to see the effect, what's the effect of fertilizer A on the growth, perhaps on the height of the plant, maybe. And then fertilizer B in order to, yeah, fertilizer B is another fertilizer, and you check the growth of the plant as well, right? So in that case, that's a very simple example. What will be the control experiment?
The one with non-fertilizer.
Oh, very good. So that is the control. So means that you have fertilizer A, fertilizer B, and your control must be without fertilizer, right? Because that will be the basic, the basis of your comparison. If let's say the one without fertilizer has maybe how much? Maybe 5 meter in the height. Okay, the one fertilizer A, maybe let's say 8 meter. So you know that, the basic without fertilizer is 5 meter. The effect of fertilizer A is 8 minus 5, let's say 3 meter, right? That is the difference. And let's say fertilizer B is 7 meter, the height. 7 minus 5 is 2. So you can see now that the effect of the things that you analyze, right, after you consider the basis, the basis. The control gives you the basis condition. Yeah? Okay, that's very good. So you should have the proper control experiment in your experiment. So that is what is needed in scientific and standard techniques and procedure. Responsibility. So what is meant by responsibility? It's a big word. You are responsible for your research project from the beginning till the end. So what does that responsibility accounts for? You have to not just, you have to be honest actually. Responsible means you read articles, you are responsible for what you read. Means that you report the right thing, right? You are responsible for that. When you do the works in the lab, you have to be responsible. You have to ensure the safety. When you do the work, you have to ensure the safety of others as well in the lab, because in the lab we, of course, we talk about safety, right? So what is meant by safety is that you don't do works that endanger others. Some of the chemicals might be hazardous, right? If you spill it, you must be responsible for that. You have to clean it, because otherwise other people might get contact with it and might get the hazards. That is in terms of what you do, and responsible in terms of the results. You should report the right results, not the fake results or incorrect results. That's in terms of that. So when in terms of the writing, you have to write good results. Yeah, you have to. You cannot cheat your results. You cannot report the one that is not correct. And then what's more? I mean, yeah, the impact is very huge, because what does it mean at the end? Good results means yield outputs, and that outputs will be benefited by people that come across your research, and maybe, yeah, for example, vaccine, like vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine. What happened if, let's say, the researchers who invented the vaccines are not honest? Maybe they say that they claim that the vaccine is efficient, but actually it's not. Maybe the efficiency is 10% only, but they reported it to be like 80%. What happened? It will cause like very severe damage, right, to the public. Yeah? So that's why the word responsibility here is very important, and it covers everything from the beginning to the start. Yeah? It's not just started when you do the research. It should started when you plan the research, you write the proposal, you do the research in the lab every single day, and then until you come up with the findings, the output. So it's a huge it's a huge process actually. Okay, and also in terms of writing, you are responsible for what you write, means that you cannot plagiarize, you cannot claim, you cannot steal someone's idea and claim that as yours. That's part of it as well. That one is in terms of the integrity. Characteristics of excellent researchers. Okay, some of them I've mentioned about it. Scholarly characteristics: skill, knowledgeable, intelligent. Skills, lab skills. So what is meant by lab skills means how you do your works, how you use certain equipments, how you carry out methods. That is lab skill. You will develop it when you do works at the lab, and more during your FYP. Knowledgeable means, because you read a lot and then you do a lot of things that will actually contribute to the knowledge, to your knowledge, and of course your intelligence. So when you know more, you can think more, you can think critically more and more. So that will contribute to your IQ. Motivation and attitude. Okay. So why it is important is part of the characteristics of excellent researchers, because the process actually will develop this kind of qualities. So you have hardworking, industrious, diligent, persevering. So because you are undergoing a journey that is not easy, as I said just now. When you do experiments in the lab, research consists of many experiments. You have to expect that you have to do many experiments. It's not just FYP. It's not about doing 5 experiments and you are done. No, maybe you need more, 10 or 20 or 50 experiments. Experiment means like things that you do, the sub-units, like things that you do for a day, for example. So there are a lot of experiments that you do, and not all experiments will work. Not to demotivate you, but that's the reality, and you have to embrace it. So don't feel down so easily that sometimes like your experiment is not working. That is normal. Everyone faces that. Okay. Don't be demotivated. You have to be strong, mentally and physically. Try again, and then that is normal. That is normal. So you have to learn from your mistakes as well. And don't give up. Don't give up. So that will actually develop other qualities as well, like persevering. You are strong. You're much stronger. When you face failures in the lab, then you'll be more careful. You'll be more hardworking because you need to do more works in order to achieve the target, right? And you have to be more systematic. If let's say your previous mistakes was because of you don't follow certain steps in order, so the next time you have to be systematic. You have to follow it in order, right? And you have to be organized. So how you achieve that? You know about logbooks, right? You have to have logbooks in the lab in order for you to record the things that you do and you observe. So that's one of the practices. Discipline and dependable. So discipline is a very important. It's not just in research, but in research, it's part of it. So if you are not disciplined, then things will not go, you will not get your targets within the time frame. If you don't force yourself to work like maybe hard, yeah, you put it to the last minute, yeah, so everything will be chaotic. Yeah? So discipline is part of it. Dependable means that you have to, you are dependable. If let's say you are dependable, means that I can rely on you. I can trust you to do works because you do the works very good. So things like that. Forward-looking, proactive, visionary. So you have to be proactive when you do research because it is an independent work. It's not anymore like you take courses, everything is, you have the lectures, you have the exams, you have the structure. But research, you have to create your own structure. So to to achieve the good results, you have to be proactive. Proactive, visionary. You have to see what is you want to achieve in this week, in next week. You have to plan your weeks. Flexibility, planning skill, time management skill, creative and innovative. Okay, this is all the skills that you have to develop. Planning skill means that before you start, for this week, I want to do this. Okay, today I want to do this. Tomorrow I want to do that. That is planning. And when you say planning, you must know that what you want to do, what are the things that you should have, the methods that you should know, right? If let's say it's something deals with equipment, you have to book the equipments beforehand, yeah? Because in the lab, there are many people who are using the equipment, so you have to be in queue. You have to book. We have that kind of system, booking system. Time management skill. Okay, this one is very important because the research depends on you now. You cannot let your supervisor to manage for you like, okay, this week you have to do this. There's no such thing. You have to plan yourself. You have to manage your time yourself. If you don't want to go to the lab in the beginning, so you are the one who will suffer, right? So don't push to the last minute. That is my advice for FYP. Because we do not know, now we are in pandemic era. And once later, maybe next semester, you are allowed to enter the lab. And means that maybe let's say you have the privilege to be at the lab. Okay, so as much as possible, use that privilege to do your works as soon as possible. What I mean by that is that, you do not time when maybe you are not allowed to enter the lab. So that's what happened last year to my students. When pandemic happens, when there was PKP, MCO, right? It happened in the I think in the mid of the semester. So some of them, some of my students who are very hardworking, they have finished their works by mid of semester 2, FYP2. Right? So when the lockdown was announced, the MCO was announced, they don't have to worry. But those people who push it to the last minute, who think that they can do the works in the 7, 8, 9 week, that is considered like last minute, they don't have much results by mid of the semester. So I cannot help much during that time when they just to report whatever they have. But those students who, manage the time well, do the things in plan, they don't push to the last minute. So they benefit from it. Of course, the pandemic, we cannot do anything about it, but that is the benefits that you may reap, you may get when when you plan your time. So my advice for you, I don't know, next semester maybe hopefully that you can get into the campus and do the experiments or the project as usual. But the moment you have the privilege to do works, as usual too, you do the works. I mean, do as much as possible because we do not know after that, maybe there is another lockdown or maybe you are not allowed to enter the lab anymore. So what happens? So if you do the works early, then at least you have, you put efforts, you have the things early, then after that it's out of our control. So at least you do your parts. So my advice is please learn from I cannot do anything because I'm the supervisor. When I see my students do not have results, I cannot blame them as well because of the lockdown. But that is the benefits of those who do works early lah. I have some students who completed their works by mid of semester. So it means that for FYP1, once you are done with the research proposal, during the semester 1 to FYP1 kan. So when you are allowed to enter the lab to do some works, start planning your work from there. Start doing work, don't delay it. And so that in FYP2, there's no much work you have to do. And even if you have to do work, sometimes like maybe there are some mistakes like maybe for first timers in the lab, you will do some mistakes, but that can be replaced, that can be compensated when you have more time, right? So it means that you do mistakes, but then you repeat it again and you get the results. Yeah? So if let's say you put the last minute, you do mistakes and you don't get results. So I mean, it's chaotic lah. Yeah? So time management skill is very important, in short. Creative and innovative, creativity in the lab. Not to an extent that it will be dangerous lah. Creativity is like you think outside the box, but in a way that is reasonable. Okay, don't go something that is that will endanger you or that is not practical. Okay, creative and innovative. Creative in thinking. Okay, let's say you want this one doesn't work, you try another way. You have to be creative in your planning, because that is you are working on your plan. So it depends on the plan that you have. Okay. I think some of these are actually I can talk about it. Yeah, skills, knowledge. Okay, this is just elaboration. Hardworking, diligent, perseverance. Yeah? I've talked about all of the points as well, but this is just the written form of the points. Okay, that's the characteristics. So, okay, so just to sum up, yeah. Skills, knowledgeable, intelligent, motivation and attitude, forward-looking, and flexibility. Okay. Behaviors and ethics in research. Okay, this is a very important part as well. Okay, research. Okay, what is meant by an ethical research? Ethical means something that is within ethics, within rules, within something that is allowed, right? Okay, so your research must be an ethical research. The type of research. What is meant by ethical research? The one that will not cause damage to humans. Research that is reasonable, not just reasonable, but ethical, that does not violate macam at the cost of people, for example, something like that. Yeah, some research that will not emit hazardous pollutants. Okay, because we do not want that. We do research, but at the same time we pollute the environment, something like that. That is not that is considered as is less ethical research. Okay, so that is in terms of the type of research. Okay, so in terms of the researcher should also be ethical. So what is meant by an ethical researcher? Researchers should behave accordingly and not selfishly, thinking of oneself only. Okay, what is meant by that is that we have to be, the easiest way is to be honest, to be honest. We must be ethical. We must follow the rules. We must be honest in writing, right? Truthful, yeah, to his findings and results. Don't alter the results or data, yeah, as I said just now. The integrity, this is something to do with the integrity, the honesty, right? When you write reports, you have to be responsible for that, and it should be something that is legit, something that is not fake. So that is the ethics. It is considered in the behavior and also in the communication. You don't talk something that is too much. Don't overclaim. If you say this enzyme is very good, but actually it's just, yeah, it's good, but then, you have to be reasonable. Like, if let's say it's just, I mean, you have to be honest, saying that, okay, there are some improvements that must be taken into consideration in the future, right? That sounds humble, and that sounds realistic, because nothing in this world is so perfect. Yeah? So there's nothing wrong with having an average results, but it's actually more important to have legit or true results than seem to be outstanding, but it's actually a fake result. Okay. So one of the easiest way, or one of the ways how this ethics and integrity is portrayed is through writing, which is ni apa? Um, is through writing. Okay. So whether your writing is has whether your writing is considered as plagiarism or not. That is one of the easiest way lah. And in writing, there is a software that can detect all the similarities. So your research writing, your thesis, yeah, before you submit, you have to submit to the training team. You have, I mean, even in assignments, any assignments before, but that is the way how, you know, part of the ways how people evaluate the trueness of your work in terms of your writing. Yeah? So plagiarism is a very serious offense in research. It's not just in research in anything, but in research we are very particular about it. And before we have to know what is plagiarism is. What is plagiarism is when you, there are many types. When you copy and paste other words and then you claim it as yours. When you take ideas, but some ideas maybe you put it in a way that is a bit different, right? But you don't give credits to the authors. That is also plagiarism, right? So these are the types of plagiarism: deliberate plagiarism or accidental plagiarism. Sometimes you are not aware that what you do is actually a plagiarism. So that's why you have to know about it. Yeah? So what is meant by deliberate plagiarism is something that is you do on purpose, purposely. Yeah? You know about it, you're aware about it. Yeah? Is secara sengaja, deliberate plagiarism. For example, you copy paste from other articles, put it in your assignment without rephrasing, without citing it. That is a deliberate plagiarism. We write from books or articles. You copy the entire things and then, you know, claim as yours. That's a deliberate plagiarism. Buying, downloading, or borrowing. Buying, downloading, when we have a paper. So you should give credits lah. If you are copying and pasting it, you don't say anything about the original author, you claim as yours, that is a plagiarism. But what is accidental plagiarism? The accidental plagiarism is recycling. Okay, not knowing how to paraphrase or summarize means that perhaps you take like some sentences, but then you try to reproduce on your own, but you do not know how to change the sentences, and you give the credits, but some of the words are still the same. That is considered as plagiarism because it will contribute to high similarity of when we check through the Trinity, it will give us the similarity index, right? The percentage of similarity. So that percentage is the one that we want to reduce actually. If it's 80% similarity means it's very high. So in writing, scientific writing, for FYP is 20% is the maximum. You cannot exceed 20%. But of course, some of the things are inevitable. Some things that you cannot avoid, some of the terms. But you can actually change other sentences, other words in the sentence. So some of the things that contribute to the similarity, right? If let's say you do it properly, like you don't copy the sentences, yeah? You just change, you just use the terms and everything else is rephrased and of course you cite, right? At the end, you will see that when you check through the technical, it will not actually contribute to high similarity. You will get something like maybe 8%, 10%, that is fine. So if you do it correctly, actually, it will not give high similarity. So high similarity is because of you don't change the sentences, although you cite it. So what is meant by change the sentences? You rephrase. Yeah. So paraphrase. Paraphrase means like you get the points, but of course you cannot copy and paste, but you have to change the way how the sentence is. Like maybe you write in a different way, but still maintaining the point, and you cite the author. That is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing. Okay, so the skill of paraphrasing is very important. I think you learn this in English. English, how to paraphrase is a very important skill in writing, and you will have to apply it for your proposal later, right? So how to master it, you have to practice now. You have to practice. You have to improve your English. When you have better English, better command of English, you know how to use more words, you know more terms, right? More style of writing. So that is something to do with the language. So I jotted down here, below 10% similarities is considered as minor similarities. It's very hard to get 0 similarities. It's not really possible, but 5%, 10%, that's fine. Okay. For FYP is 20%, but the less is the better. I remember for my FYP, for my PhD thesis, it's not much. It's about 6 to 8% only. So that's happened when you write on your own. You don't actually rely on words. We don't copy the words. If you write by your own, it will not appear on the printing report, the similarity. Although the points that the words are there, because they don't detect the words like many words adjacent to each other, you know, like maybe like the word, for example, bioethanol, it can be appeared in any articles, but the way how you write it, the sentence that you construct might be different from others. So in that sense, the similarity will not appear. They will not highlight it, you know, because in the report, it will highlight the things that are similar, and that contributes to the index, the rate. Okay, so basically that's what this module is all about, right? We talk about thesis research project, yeah. Why students undertake research, study, and write thesis? What are the steps in carrying out research? Principles of research, characteristics of excellent researchers, behaviors and ethics in research. Yeah, perhaps by now you are aware about you know what the research is all about, what you should prepare yourself with. Yeah. For example, the characteristics of excellent researchers. From now onwards, uh, you should put efforts how to be independent, how to be proactive, right? How to be hardworking, systematic, organized. That kind of things can be developed. Huh? That kind of skills can be developed throughout the time. And how to be more responsible, ethical, you know, try to improve your language because that will contribute to how you write your science, and how to be ethical, right? Okay. Any questions so far? Any question, guys?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Any concept that are not clear? You know what paraphrasing is? You should know by now, because you're going to deal with it.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, I have okay, before that, let's go to your to the homework that I gave, or tutorials that I gave you last week. So you guys have submitted the tutorial 1. Let's just go through what you have done. I mean, the model answers. Okay. Okay, so you have to identify what you have to find out in your tutorial 1 last week. You have to identify identify Sekejap. Sekejap, eh. Okay, can you see the ellipse?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. So you have to identify the problem from the article, hypothesis, research questions, parameters and their range, types of data, qualitative or quantitative. Okay, now let's have a look at the article. The research problem. What is the research problem in this article? So since everyone has submitted, so I can give the answers. So the problem normally, okay, in article, this is a research article. There is a review article. There are two types of article. Research article reports the results, the research. A review is about reviewing. There is no actually methods, results. They are just reviewing different articles. That is review paper. I'll introduce that in other module. But this one is a research paper, research article. Sometimes we say paper, sometimes we say article. So you can see that there are few sections, right? First one is abstract, introduction, right? And then after that is materials and methods. And then what else? And results and discussion. And after that is conclusion. And finally is references. So that is the basic format of an article. So in the introduction, what is the intro section is all about? It introduces the background of the study. Like in this case, is about using this sago bioethanol liquid waste. It means that the waste, the liquid waste from the sago bioethanol production. Because when during the bioethanol production, there are the waste generated after we get the bioethanol. So what happened to that waste? That waste is to be studied in this work, okay, as a substrate or feedstock for producing lacase using Pichia pastoris, right? So it means that we use that waste and grow the Pichia pastoris in it and see whether the lacase is produced, because that this Pichia is producing lacase. So basically that's the research is all about. So if you read the article, the intro in any articles, the info should have the research problem before the objectives or the aim of the study. Okay, so if you see here, the last paragraph is the aim, right? The main aim of this study was to evaluate the feasibility of so and so, right? So the problem should actually, you should expect the problem to be stated before the objective or aim, which is actually in the paragraph before that. This is where it's supposed to be. Yeah. So what this paragraph is all about. So in this case, we are studying lacases, right? So what is the problem of lacases? There must be a problem with, I mean, the problem is the gap, is the things that is not being explored, in other words. So see, you see previously, yeah, but nonetheless, development of strategies for optimal and inexpensive production of lacase is still under examine since the strain is relatively new. So that is the problem. That is the limitation of previous work that needs to be addressed by this work. Yeah. What else? Actually, there are more. Actually, oh yeah, in the paragraph before that also there is some problems as well. I mean, you can expect the paragraphs. It's not just the paragraph before, but the paragraphs can be more than that. So this paragraph also it states some of the problems. For example, where is it just now? Okay. Today, exploitation of the waste stream generated following the production of bioethanol is still remain unexplored. That is something that is not been done yet. That is the problem. So that is actually the one of the problem statement, together with just now here, development of strategies is still under examine. Yeah, because of this trend is new, right? And there is still less studies. So that is the problems. Okay, the next one is hypothesis, right? So it is not stated directly what the hypothesis, but you can develop from your understanding about the aim of this work. The aim of this work is to use or to test this liquid waste as a feedstock for production of lacates in P-capacitorase. So of course, the null hypothesis should say that it can't be used, right? There's nothing happen. You use it, but there's no lacates. That is the null. Something no happen will happen. There's nothing will happen, sorry. Alternative hypothesis is the opposite. It means that, yeah, the liquid waste can be used as a feedstock for lacates production. So it's about like setting back what the research is all about, you know. But you have to know that two types of hypothesis. Okay, what else is on? What is other, what you have to look for? Research questions. Okay, research questions. So here, so based on the hypothesis just now, the alternative says that it can be used. So the research question, what is the, you know, what is the, how much actually, how? I mean, it is to be developed from the alternative hypothesis. When you say that it can be produced, right? Sorry, liquid waste can be used as a feedstock. So how much lacates will be produced using liquid waste, this liquid waste? Yeah? What is the factors that will affect the process? Something to do with the things that you want to answer during the process. That's research question. So it can be various, like depends on. So those are among the examples. Research questions: how to improve, what can be done, right? How much lacates will be produced, right? Things like that. And parameters and their range. Parameters and their range. So in this work, the parameters are what? So you have to understand the article here very much in order for you to know lah what. Okay, so you go to the materials and methods. The parameters means the things that you manipulate, right? Throughout the research in order to see the effects, right? So here, right, you can see from page here, 173, okay? Where is it? So they are, this work is exploring different concentration of this liquid waste at 40, 50, 60 to 100%. So different concentration. This is actually the parameter, one of the parameters. Okay. Another parameter is P-capacitorase. It's not mentioned. It's supposed to be the yeast extract actually. Okay, but this is one of the parameters. So if you, yeah, this is the things that you have to identify. What is parameter or variable is the one that you vary, because at the end, if you see the results, they are results of different comparison of the kinetics for different concentration of this SBLW, which is a liquid waste. So you can see that when you vary it, you should have outputs of those things that you vary. Like in this case, it's this one. Yeah. Okay, understand? Okay, so that's the parameter, and the range is like from what to what? Like for the concentration here, from 40 to 100%. That is the range. Yeah. Okay, apa lagi? Types of data, qualitative or quantitative. Okay, there are actually some qualitative, but not much. Most of them are quantitative because it deals with the number, like this one. Like you go to the result and discussion and see the data, like this one is numbers, right? So it should be quantitative, yeah? Quantitative. But qualitative is this one. Should see the color of the things. Homogeneous. I thought that I put the color over here. So if let's say sometimes it is just a short description about maybe the mixture is brownish in color, heterogeneous. That is a kind of qualitative data. Okay, but it's not stated here. But it is, if let's say in any article that you see, it describes the appearance, the qualities, the characteristics, the color, what else? That is a type of qualitative data. So I asked you guys, right? A research could consist of, the data could be a combination of both. It cannot be, it's not necessary to be just quantitative or qualitative, but it can be a combination as well. Okay? But in this case, it's mostly quantitative lah, because most of the results are numbers. You can see the numbers over here. And the numbers, that's the quantitative. Okay, I think that's it. Right, the types of data, yeah. State those data. So means you just highlight those things. All right, so that's it. Oh yeah, I have a homework for you. Yeah. So it's just for you to practice. Okay. Now we talk about rephrasing or paraphrasing. Paraphrasing or rephrasing is the same thing actually. It means that you construct or rephrase the statement that you read from articles. Okay, so I give you two statements here, two sentences. Okay, and what I would like you guys to do is you rephrase these two sentences. It's not that much. You can do it in just 30 minutes maybe. I do at home now. You do it on your own. But these are the two sentences that I want you to rephrase. Rephrase. Do you know what rephrase is, right? Paraphrase. Okay. The cases are this is the same statements from the articles. The cases are polyphenol oxidases that have important applications in the treatments of effluents from paper and pulp, textile, and so and so. Right. How you want to rephrase it? How you want to take the points, right? But in a way that is not similar to this, because this is originally from the article. You cannot just copy and paste the whole thing and put in your proposal. Yeah, and the same thing goes to the second sentence. It's a different statement. I mean, you construct different sentences. This is just for you to practice. So the second sentence is research in Brazil. So how you want to construct these two sentences by maintaining the same points, but in different style. That is paraphrasing. That is to be done for you at home. Okay. And submit. Nanti I create the submission. So you have to practice a lot. This is part of the preparation for your FYP, because in your proposal you have to write literature review. You have to write the whole section on your own. You have to construct your own sentences. So you have to rephrase from the articles. So this is part of the exercises, part of the training. Okay, so please write these two. It's not that much, right? And submit on eLib. I'll set the submission link. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
All right. Who wants to scan your attendance? All right, let me see. Okay, those who have scanned your attendance, you can leave now.
Thank you, Doctor, for today's session.
Okay, welcome. All right, I can, yeah, those who need manual attendance, yeah. I'll take note that.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, no problem.
Doctor.
All right.